Alright, so first off, let's just go kind of down memory lane on how I improved in like Season 2. Basically, the way I remember it was I was like a plat player and I started watching streams and kind of just seeing how people are playing in higher elo. I also thought at the time Rumble was super OP in Season 2, so I mained top lane for a while. And it turns out he was OP because they actually nerfed his AP ratios in like Season 4, so it was pretty interesting to see that. But yeah, basically watching streams got me better. I used to watch the Odd One a lot, and he made me a better jungler, and combining that, some game knowledge with playing OP champions like Xin Zhao, Skarner, Ryze, all these OP champions back in the day. And then I think I got the Diamond, which was considered 2100 LP or something like that. I'm not even sure if it was called MMR or what it was so long time ago. But yeah, all I remember was climbing with OP champions and just watching how pros played and kind of copying them. Although one thing that stuck out the most when I was watching the Odd One stream was how he was team fighting with tank junglers. Basically what he would do is he'd run in, take a lot of damage, and then flash out. And this gave me a new perspective on how team fights should go. You're not supposed to suicide in these team fights and die like a tank. You're supposed to try and survive the team fight as long as you can. And so, implanted in my head, I always want to survive, and this carried out in my mindset, and eventually it actually expanded to the whole places of the map and not just team fighting, where I shouldn't die. So like 2v2 counter ganks, if I go there, we're probably going to lose, so I'm going to avoid that situation. And yeah, basically after seeing Odd One trying to survive these team fights, even after he soaked a lot of damage instead of suiciding, I had a different perspective of the game, and then I just realized that dying is for fools. Now, when I say you should watch streams to get better, you have to just try and get in a mindset of getting better, and the way to do that is you tell yourself you suck. I've been doing that since Season 1 and 2, and I got better. Recently, I dropped like 200 LP, and I was like, okay, I suck, time to get better. And that motivated me to get better. I don't need to watch streams, I can watch replays, because I can understand most of the things that they do. So I just need to see how they move around the map and how they react to certain situations. For the average player though, they might not understand why they're doing such a thing, and that's why the best streams or commentaries are going to be the ones which explain their decision making and thought process. Those are the most helpful ones, and you can learn a lot. Because if you understand what they're talking about, then you can implement that in your own playstyle. If you're just blindly copying them and picking their champions, following their builds, and like following a certain jungle route and say ganking a certain lane, there's probably a good reason why they're doing that. For instance, maybe they're camping mid lane for some reason, but maybe it's because mid's flash is down, and in your game, you're trying to do that, but you don't realize that their flash is still up or something like that. If you see like a really good player who's playing, say, the AD carry, which is a mechanical kind of role, you can't just blindly copy what he does. You have to understand why he's using certain abilities right now, why is he focusing this target, etc, etc. You can't just be like, I can do that, hold my beer. You gotta be more like, huh, that makes sense. Next time I play that champion or play that certain role, I'll make sure to remember that. So yeah, blindly copying and not understanding the concept on why they do such things is kind of bad in terms of improving yourself. You have to understand why it does such things. Also, in terms of like learning a champion and knowing what his skills does and what you can do with it, mechanics. I feel like mechanics can only take you so far up in the ladder, around probably say Diamond 5. And like say you're really good at Draven, you can 2v2 anyone in your elo and you usually win lane. But maybe you don't really have the greatest decision making. All you know is I can kill my lane 2v2, easy peasy lemon squeezy. Like for instance, you gotta play safe when the enemy is in their bottom side of the jungle, but you're still going ham anyways, and then you get caught up by a Lee Sin gank or something like that. That's just a general example of like decision making. And decision making also helps you in mid game and late game, knowing what to do in these certain phases, what you should be doing, and that's why you should concentrate on decision making rather than mechanics. For me, myself, I don't have the greatest mechanics, and I know you guys who watch my videos know that, but I do have pretty good decision making. And that's why I play the jungle role, because that's all it is. Like, hey, maybe you are a very good Draven player, and sometimes you go 10-1, but there are other games where you just feed constantly and go 0-7. That's a pretty good example of really good mechanics, but also really bad decision making. And so, to improve decision making, just watch how people react to certain situations. Or again, people who explain their thought process. Next up, I'm going to be showing you how I improve. Well, first off, I do watch some streams like Meteos. I think he's a really good jungler. And then there are some solo queue junglers who I think are really good, and I want to see how they do their route, what they decide to do in certain situations, and how they play. I already know what they do in the mid game and late game phase, so basically I'm just trying to learn how they play their early game, since that is where I feel I was lacking in my games. And also a good way to improve yourself is ask yourself what would you do in the situation that he's in, and then see what this guy does. For instance, instead of going to Scuttle Crab, I would have gone to try and gank mid, and then made my way to my blue. But as you can see, this guy has other plans and wants to go into the enemy jungle. It makes sense because I think he wants to put pressure on to finding where this enemy Tryndamere is in his jungle. He also probably knows that Tryndamere started the red side since, well, why would Tryndamere ever start blue, right? He doesn't need it. He then ends up killing Tryndamere, and as you can see, he was about to go into the blue, and then he sees that Draven is in trouble and the enemy bot lane is overextending, so he does see some free kills. Now, the next thing that's interesting to me that this guy does is that he goes for a dive onto this Graves, which is something I don't think I would have thought to do. I probably would have done some counter jungling and try and get the Tryndamere's blue, but now I see that I should be looking out for more tower dives if possible around the map. One thing I did notice about this guy is when he has a lead on this Tryndamere, he gets really aggressive and wants to go in his jungle and like take over and pressure him. He even has a sight ward so he can like deep ward in the jungle and see what this Tryndamere is and give him a hard time. Something I can take out of this is that I should probably buy more wards and, you know, get some deep wards into the enemy jungle. Next up is going to be this guy named Moon3. I think he's a really good jungler, and one thing I took out of this replay while watching him was that even though this was a failed gank attempt, he was about to go to his Gromp. But then I think he realizes that that sight ward actually indicates where he was about to go, telling the enemy jungler that he was about to go to the Gromp. So if he did go to the Gromp, there's a chance that the enemy jungler could have killed him at his Gromp since he knew kind of where he was going. So instead he goes up to do the golems. Pretty interesting for me at least. One thing I take from watching these replays over and over again is that these junglers actually love to pressure the map rather than do camps. And for me, I liked doing camps more than pressuring lanes, and I think that's actually a big flaw for me in solo queue. And after just kind of noticing that I farm too much and deciding to go for this aggressive playstyle on the map, I noticed that, well, I started winning games more and getting a better early game lead. Because some of those ganks actually did work and I got a flash or a kill out of it. So yeah, after just analyzing these replays of these really good players that I respect in solo queue, I understand that I should probably be pressuring the map more. And finally, let's just say I wanted to learn mid, specifically Ezreal mid. Now again, if you want to get better at mechanics, then you just analyze why he's using this skill at this time, and hey, maybe a thought might come up where you would use a skill in that position, but apparently this guy didn't, so you try to understand why he didn't do that skill. Just an example if you want to improve at mechanics. For me, I just want to get better at mid lane in general, and right here I see that he's starting to push up the lane immediately, which indicates to me that he wants to get to level 2 first. And so I guess that's why he's pushing aggressively. I guess he's not scared of the Nidalee ganks since he values harass over escape. And as you can see here, this is why he's not scared of the Nidalee ganks, because a ward is placed down here. And it's pretty smart that he puts a ward right there, since it is the time where the jungler should usually gank the mid lane or something. It's kind of weird to see the ward here because usually in Italy will go a camp the red buff to blue buff or the other way around. I guess I'd safely have to assume that he thought Nidalee started the blue side buff. And right here he puts another point of W because I think he knows where Nidalee is, so he's not really scared of any ganks. And then right here he's just setting up some easy last hitting at the tower. One thing you can also take note is that he starts playing up to the right side of the map because he knows that Nidalee is on the left side. So if a gank is happening, it would probably come from the top side river. So it does look like he wants to avoid that side. Then as you can see, he's trying to push the lane and harass the enemy as much as he can before he goes back and recalls. And then recalls on the side that Nidalee shouldn't be on yet. Next he gets finally back to lane, and as you can see here, he's not pushing the lane at all. He wants some of the enemy's creeps to kill his creeps so Victor loses some CS. Then when finally Victor comes back, he starts moving and, does stuff. And yeah, I kind of get the gist of how he plays AP Ezreal in the mid lane. He doesn't really go for auto attack harasses because I think he knows he'll probably lose these trades. And here's a pretty interesting note for a mechanical play that he does. So it looks like he's going in the fog of war, trying to snipe out Victor with his ultimate because, skill shots are better when it's coming from the fog of war. And it looks like he's also trying to avoid as much creeps as he can so he can get that maximum damage output on his ultimate. Anyways, these are just some examples that I look into when I'm looking and analyzing a replay on how I can improve my own game. And since I understand some of these concepts that I see, I'll put that into my own gameplay and see how it goes. Thank you guys for watching this video, and hopefully this video was useful.